Hello friends again, and we're on to another myth. It's the myth of adding science to words and actions. And I'm thinking particularly here of science of reading or reading science, and any which way you want to move those, but of course it could be anything really. And again, it's another rhetorical device, a bit like evidence, where we add science to an action or a behaviour, and it makes it seem more powerful and scientific. So the science of gardening, the science of using a stapler, wow, let's do that. Let's get some authority through adding those. And you might think I'm parodying here, and I actually am, but it's not too far from the truth, because when we think about this, we don't actually, there isn't even a specific reading area within the brain. We think it might use lots of different areas and co-op all of them to work together to enable reading to work. But there isn't a neurobiological actual area in there. There isn't a location for the reading area. So there isn't even a real scientific kind of focus in the neurobiology of how to learn to read. And when we think of other things, we think about how the science of reading has been used rhetorically and how it's been used as a device. Within media and within, I think sociologically about it and culturally about how it's been used, then that gives us a few clues that it's really not very scientific, is it? Because if it were, we'd be far less willing to plop labels on things by adding about science as the science of reading, the science of stapling, the science of gardening. About that, we'd be far less willing to do that, and we'd be far more circumspect and careful about how we generate new sciences from some studies that have been done, which may or may not be very good. And if we're really, really careful, we might think about, studies that are put up there as an example of a science, reading science of reading, whatever combination we want to use. Then there's been a few problems with these, and they seem a bit less scientific the more we dig, which is interesting. With things like publication bias, where people are citing without being critical. They just cite. So like an endless string of a chamber of citations, an echo chamber of citations, just echoing thing. But the actual original source, the echo, is not so certain about that. And things like amplification happens, which we know is a real problem in research, and scientific research indeed within the sciences has identified that problem over the last 20, 30 years, publication bias that is. So again, very unscientific behaviours being used here, which are really actually sociological and cultural, and even sometimes based on self-interest of the people who are talking about the science of reading, about their fantastic programs that they want to promote to everybody, which is great. But hey, let's not talk about this being a scientific mission. It's actually done for other reasons. And not the quiet, careful skepticism, criticality, and questioning, which are actually real scientific attributes, are not there. There's a lot of certainty and a lot of promotion and a lot of self-promotion going on here, which again are not really very scientific. They're more about the sociology of and politics and those kinds of areas. So it's not enough to just say that we are being scientific about something, about gardening, science of gardening or science of stapling or whatever. We can't do that. That's not enough. There's not enough intellectual depth there to start making these kind of statements. And actually, in fact, they're probably rather crass. So talking back to the short video I did, or rather ran, on evidence-based practice, think about what evidence we have, how that exists within disciplines that are already established, and can we really make those sorts of claims about applying science to actions or behaviours. And in fact, I'll leave you with a little final thought, and I say no in most cases, and I'll leave you with a little final thought. That kind of approach where we are expanding and making big claims or using media and other networks, is more really marketing. So it's really the science of marketing ourselves or our program or our product. And let's be honest about that, rather than dress it up as science, if that's the case. I don't think it is. So, it's a science of marketing. And if we were being really unkind and prosaic, and perhaps a critic might say, this is really about the science of bullshit. Really, that's what it is. It's a science of bullshit, or bullshit science, pseudoscience. So I'll leave you with what a critic might say, of course not me, about these claims. Thanks for listening. I hope it was fun.